What's up, tribe? How you guys doing? Welcome back. It's a retro review, you guys, of A Different World. We are in season 3, episode 7. Listen, this is probably one of my least favorite episodes. I really didn't like this episode. I liked the subs. These shows always have a main story, and then they have that sub story. I like the sub story, but I didn't like the main story. This is okay. Let me just get into it, y'all. So we start this episode off. We see Walter rolling up on Jaleesa. Jaleesa trying to get a paper done, and he tells her, he said, "You remember that contest, that honeymoon contest that I entered?" And she was like, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I won." And she was like, "Oh, well, congratulations. Who you gonna take?" And he was like, "My wife." And she was like, "Oh, well, who was that?" And he was like, "You." And then, they end up having this conversation, and he ends up proposing. Jaleesa gives him all the reasons why they shouldn't do it, and he gives her all the reasons why they should do it. And she ends up saying yes. So while she ends up saying yes, we see that Freddie and Kim have just come back from a double date from hell. They are sitting there drowning their sorrows in some donuts. Whitley comes and look like she just came from a workout, and she is all exhilarated, and Dwayne is there as well, talking to them about how bad their date was. Now, Jaleesa and Walter come out and announce to them that they're getting married, and of course, the girls are excited. Dwayne is surprised, and Whitley is like, "Why are y'all doing this? Like, what the hell?" And from that point, Whitley decides that she is going to be the wedding coordinator, and Dwayne is going to be her assistant. And Dwayne is like, "Wait a minute, I don't know nothing about no weddings." But remember, this is after their little kiss, at the in the snow. And matter of fact, before this happened, a comment was made. Somebody's the ladies, Dwayne was telling the ladies that, their dates weren't that bad or whatever, and Whitley said something about, "Well, Dwayne, when was the last time you had a romantic moment?" And he was like, "You don't remember?" And of course, Jaleesa and Freddie and Kim didn't miss it, but it was just at that moment that Walter and Jaleesa came out to let them know they were engaged. So I feel like this was Whitley's way of working with Dwayne and spending some time with Dwayne, because really, you had Kim, you had Whitley there. Why would you be choosing Dwayne to be your assistant? So the campus is all a buzz. Everybody is excited and happy, and they're planning this whole wedding. We've got Jaleesa and her Kim bought Jaleesa her wedding dress, and Jaleesa didn't even look up from her her paper long enough to even pay attention to it. So that let you know she really wasn't all that. She was like, "Let me finish this first, and then we'll get into it." Now, across the hall, we got Dwayne and Whitley. Now, Dwayne ended up walking in and surprising Whitley. Whitley was half dressed. Not anything risque, but she runs in the closet, and he's talking to her, and he helps her zip up her dress when she comes out. And he tells her how beautiful she looks and all that good stuff. And so he zips up the dress, and he starts flirting with her, and he starts telling her how beautiful she looks, and he sort of corners her, and he looks like he get ready to lean in for another kiss. And actually, before that, he 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 found Whitley's pantyhose, honey, and he's like, realized that she stuffs her bra, and he is, clowning her about it. And she was like, "Dwayne, you can't tell nobody." She said, "Listen, you have one of my secrets, now you got to tell me one of yours." And Dwayne was like, "Well, he was like, "I don't have no secrets as big as this." And she was like, "Come on, Dwayne, you gotta let me know." So he says, "Okay, I got a secret." He said, "I like somebody, but I don't know if she likes me back." And so she was like, "Well, why don't you just tell her?" And he was like, "Well, what if I tell her and she doesn't return, my affections?" And that's when he sort of kind of had her cornered, and looked like he was getting ready to kiss her. And then Whitley sort of, gets away from him and turns her back to him, and he comes up behind her, and he starts telling her how beautiful she was, and she's got beautiful shoulders. And it's that moment that Kim walks in the door, and Kim was like, "Do I need to come back later?" And Whitley was like, "Nope, you are just in time. Like, you have interrupted right on time." So then we see the guys having their bachelor party for Walter. And you got Mr. Gaines, his wife is making all the food, and they were singing happy trails to you and all that good stuff. And then the guys leave, and Walter um, they start talking to him about marriage and the ups and the downs and the ins and the outs and but Walter, he seems really secure in his decision. He was like, listen, me and Jaleesa ain't gonna have them problems, when we have our kids and we're gonna be driving our Winnebago across country and staying at the campgrounds and I'm gonna be showing them, the countryside and all of this. Now while he's having this conversation, Jaleesa's talking to the girls, talking about how she gonna live in the city in her high-tech apartment, running back and forth from her job and, that kind of thing. So they have two totally different visions on what their future is going to look like. And the girls are like, well, does Walter know that that's what you want? And she was like, I don't even know what Walter knows. So she ends up finding Walter at the pit. And she says, Walter, we need to talk. And she tells him, listen, I don't think we should get married. And he was like, wait a minute, let's talk about it. And so they sit down and they start talking. And, he kind of talks her off the ledge. But some of the things they said to each other, they realize how much they really don't have in common, right? They find out that, he wants multiple kids. She was like, I could give you one. He wants to travel through the countryside in the Winnebago. She wants to be a city girl, right? And so he talks her off the ledge and they agree to go ahead and go move forward with the wedding. But you could see that they definitely did not have a meeting of the minds when it came to the wedding. So Whitley and Dwayne are they're getting married in the foyer of Gilbert Hall. So Whitley and Dwayne are there decorating, and Dwayne is trying to lock Whitley down. He's talking to her. He's like, listen, we need to talk about, there's clearly something going on between us. And Whitley keeps avoiding it. She keeps avoiding the conversation. And Dwayne is like, listen, I don't know why you keep running from me, but like I know, it's something between us. There's some electricity going on between us, and we need to talk about it. And Whitley just keeps avoiding him, and just at that moment, Mr. Gaines comes in with Mrs. Gaines. They got the chili, they got the cake, and of course Whitley uses that as a perfect distraction to get out of the conversation with Dwayne. So, Dwayne is kind of giving her that look like, okay, you got away from me this time, but I ain't done, with this conversation. So, Miss Gaines ends up talking to Whitley and say, hey, so that's your boo? That's your man? And Whitley was like, nah, we just friends. And she said, I know that look. I know that look. And you looking at him and he looking at you, and there's something going on between the two of y'all. There's something there. And Whitley was like, no, he's just my friend. And she, lets Whitley know, yeah, all right, you can lie to yourself if you want to, but I see what I see. So, so Dwayne actually ends up kissing Whitley right there in the middle of the lobby in front of whoever is there, right? And he kind of kisses her and sort of leaves her standing there like dumbfounded, right? So we're at the wedding. Everyone is there. Now, Jaleesa was also worried about the fact that her family couldn't be there. That was another one of her issues as well. Now, Jaleesa made a beautiful bride. She came down those steps. The wedding dress was nice. Walter was in a tux with long tails. They had the flute and the clarinet playing, and Freddie, Kim, and Whitley were bridesmaids. It was a really nice wedding that they threw together in 2 weeks. Okay. So they get down to the front, and it seems like which was funny was Colonel Taylor actually walked Jaleesa down the aisle, and we know that later on. Well, I don't want to be a spoiler for the people who ain't never seen Different World, but let's just say later on down the line that'll be ironic to you, okay? It seems like it was the campus clergy that was marrying them, because he started talking about how he remembered them when they first started dating, and he saw how their relationship blossomed and grew and all of this. And when he got to the part about if there's anybody that objects to this wedding, please speak now or forever hold your peace. And both of them spoke up, because while he was talking, in their mind they were thinking about the things that the other person said that wasn't in line with what they thought marriage was going to be. And so she looks at him and he looks at her, and they're both like, so you want to call it off? And they were like, well, you do too. And so they end up having a conversation with each other and realizing that, listen, we love each other, but we are just not ready for this step. And they end up letting the guests know, we appreciate you guys. Thank you for being here. We appreciate everything that everybody did. But this just ain't going to happen today. We're not here for it. And they say, listen, we're going to party. We're going to eat this cake. We're going to have a good time. Like, we ain't mad. Me and Walter are cool with this. We are, we ain't mad with each other. But this just ain't the right time. And so we see, everybody kind of like, okay, all right. And then later on, they've partied. You got Walter and Jaleesa talking. Walter ends up giving Mr. Gaines and his wife the trip, the honeymoon trip, and they're talking, and it seems like in that moment, this is the reason why I don't like this episode, because I feel like they were saying they weren't ready for this step, not that they didn't want to be with each other anymore. So I was like, why did they have to break up? Because they weren't ready for marriage. That didn't mean they didn't love each other anymore and didn't want to be in the marriage. And even though they had different visions of things, I think some of that stuff is stuff you can compromise on. Like, Walter wasn't saying he wanted to live in a Winnebago for the rest of his life. He was saying he wanted to travel and show his kids. Now, the kids think maybe that wasn't non-negotiable. I don't know. But anyway, at that moment, I feel like they sort of had their conversation saying, hey, maybe this relationship ain't meant to be either. Which, again, I never liked the fact that Jaleesa and Walter broke up in that moment. But, okay, that's over. It happened 20 years ago, child. Then we see Dwayne and Whitley. After it's over with, Dwayne and Whitley are talking. And Dwayne says, Whitley, let's head on, you feel like going for a movie. And Whitley says, well, I don't know if I'm ready to make that sort of a commitment. And Dwayne was like, it's a movie. What are you talking about? And she said, no, that would be a date. And I'm just don't know if I'm ready. And she told him, she said, listen, Dwayne, there is clearly there's an attraction there. I'm not going to say there isn't. But I don't know if I'm ready for us to make that move, because that's serious. We're friends. We would, it's always that situation where you're friends with the person you're interested in and you risk losing that friendship. Whitley hasn't had a lot of boyfriends and she's just nervous about the whole thing. And so, Dwayne was like, well, we can do this together. Like, I'm willing to take it slow. And she's like, well, Dwayne, I don't want you to wait on me. He was like, no, I ain't said I was doing all that. I ain't waiting. But if you basically are saying, like, you cool with doing this, then we can work our way to it. But I ain't waiting for nobody. And so they have a moment. But again, we're moving another step in this Dwayne Whitley relationship. They are acknowledging that there are feelings there, but that they're not ready to act on those feelings yet. At least Whitley isn't. Dwayne ready. Whitley ain't ready to act on those feelings yet. And then basically the episode ends with them eating the rest of the cake and laughing and joking, and they're back to just being good friends. So again, not my favorite episode, but it is what it is. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Drop it in those comments. Peace.